We shall get started in five, four, three, two, one.
All right, welcome to another session of Fragments Silicon Reviews. This week we have two of them. First up, we've got Blob, a specific port of Blob at that. And after that, we have Chroma Squad, the game we did an interview about just a couple days ago. So, first up is Blob. So, it might seem a bit strange that we would be reviewing a Wii game from 2008, but the thing is, and if you missed this, it wouldn't surprise me, because the release was pretty stealthy, if I'm being honest, like, and pretty sudden. Yeah, so the Blob has a PC version now. Got released a few weeks ago, in fact. Like I said, it's blinking if you miss it, because I really didn't see any. Well, maybe not any promotion, but certainly not a lot of promotion, especially compared to other platformers that have been released. Like not just Ukulele or Snake Pass, but even Voodoo Vince Remastered seemed to have more of a press campaign than this one, and that's a that's kind of a shame, because the Blob is in most respects a pretty fantastic and more to the point unique platformer. I'm like, I suppose I shouldn't lament too much for the Blob, because it seems to have been it found a fair amount of success back in the day, at least the first one. Like, certainly enough to get a sequel, which appeared on the HD platform. At that, I don't know if the Blob 2 is ever coming to the PC. Maybe it will. It might be tied to the performance of this port. Um, but yeah. So anyway, D Blob was originally a game fashioned for the then not brand spanking new, but still fairly fresh Nintendo Wii. And it was a game, you know, how do I put this? It was fashioned to match the aesthetic of the Wii. I'm like, well, that ordinarily that does mean motion controls. This is more, hey, let's make a kid-friendly platformer for the system.
Or everyone friendly, because the Wii kind of targeted everyone, but particularly kids in this case.
Right. Well, it's like when you're talking about platforming games, you talk about things that are usually aimed at a genre that's aimed at kids. And, you know, yeah, De Blob is definitely an E for everyone game, but I definitely see it skewing towards younger players, given that this game is, if I'm being honest here, literally repurposing the plot of Rainbow Bright. I'm like, I'm gonna have to explain Rainbow Bright now, am I? Like,
Also, that one, what was it?
um,
That one game on the
uh,
NES, was it Trolls? I think it was Trolls.
I never played that, so I can't say, but I I do remember Rainbow Bright. Shockingly,
I
Bringing the
do too,
color
but
back to things that.
I also remember Rainbow Bright, but I also have two sisters, so that can be excused.
I don't know. Well, the thing of it is, like, the Rainbow Bright movie played a lot on HBO back in the '80s.
Mm.
Surprisingly violent too. Like,
A
that
lot of
spaceship
80s
just
stuff was surprisingly violent.
Indeed.
that, that spaceship just blew up with the villain in it. Like, anyway, well, the basic premise here, like in Rainbow Bright, is you're you are an instrument of color, literally battling against a gray universe. You know, I mean, in this case, you're dealing with it. Trying to remember the place, but you're like it's a place called Chroma City. Like, I guess the unintentional theme this week is primary colors and chroma key.
Sorta.
Yeah. Sort of, but not really. But I'm like, so, yeah, Chroma City is a really bright colored city, and it's invaded by an alien force called the Inked, which appears to be an acronym. I don't know what it stands for. Um, Basically, they turn the whole world gray, and it's all gray, dull, and boring, and bureaucratic, and you are the titular the Blob, an I'm not sure if you're even sentient. I guess you are, but now it's like the Blob doesn't really have much in the way of characterization. He likes to paint though, and you're literally bringing color and funkiness and joy and music and creativity back in the world. It's really simple stuff, as you'd expect from a kid-centric platforming game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, and it's dealing with basic color wheel mechanics, like uh, like the exact same color mechanics that are in Paper Mario Color Splash. If I'm being honest, it's like it's got the three primary colors that mix into the secondary colors, and also if you mix all three of them, you get brown. And your basic mission is like, I will say this mechanically, this is a pretty unique platformer because instead of dealing with like, your main mission is to paint everything. That's sort of the substitute for collecting. Instead of collecting the 100 things to open the gate, you've got to paint a certain percentage of the buildings or the major things before the gate opens.
Does it do the usual paint effect thing where you don't have to literally cover every square inch of things, but if you get pretty close, it'll automatically fill in the last tiny bit?
Actually, you just need to touch a building, and the space will fully paint itself.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to, there's no precision.
So you just have to tap the objects and they...
You just have to touch the object with your body, which actually does come into play in some of the later challenges, because here's how your level structure works. You've got your main level, and when you beat that, you unlock a couple of challenge levels, which are much shorter and much more direct in its challenges. And it starts out pretty easy, but like one of the mid-level challenges is getting downtown without painting anything, so you have a full amount of paint to paint the everything.
So you actually expend resources to paint stuff?
Yes. Every time you paint something, every time you eliminate an enemy, it's not everything. Like if you paint a tree or minor things, they won't take what are called paint points. And your main source of paint are from these things called paint bots. You slam on them and you will get 10 points. You start out with 10 points and you go up to 100 points. And points are actually important, not just because when you run out of points, you run out of paint, but certain like mini bosses, let's call them, or mini boss objectives, you've got to like take on certain buildings, and those require a certain amount of paint points and usually a certain paint color. Like in order to convert a, say, police station, you need 30 paint points of blue paint. And then you go do that, and then actually converting the building is pretty easy. You just target it, and then you jump up, and you just got to keep hitting the button down until it changes. It's on it. It like it's honestly pretty easy.
Now, are there paint points for each color, or is it just paint points
Just
whatever color you're on?
just paint points. It's not 100 of each.
All right.
Like I said, this isn't that complex a game. You know, you don't have to manage your resources like that. Now, it's also worth noting that since this game was released on the Nintendo Wii, it would take advantage of its control scheme. I can't speak to how it played on the Nintendo Wii, because I don't have that set up with me.
Mm-hmm. I did look around, but I didn't see any used Wii copies at the local stores.
Yeah, I'm like, so I don't know how it played, and it's significant to mention that because, remember I don't know if the game played with like the Nintendo Classic controller or if it was just Wiimote Nunchuck. I'm like, that being said, how it played with a regular old Xbox 360 controller, it played like a dream. Like, I'm willing to bet that things like the Blob bounce was done by motion controls and shit. But
yeah, I'm sure there was some motion control in there.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever was in it converted really well to a controller. Like, it controlled like any other platformer I've ever played. In the like PlayStation 2 era and beyond. That's kind of important because what I'm getting at is if it played with the Wiimote Nunchuck, then it would have had some issues with camera controls. Because in this version, your second analog stick here controls the camera.
Like most 3 games would want to have.
Right, but if you remember, one of the great flaws of the Wiimote Nunchuck setup is you've only got one analog stick.
Mm-hmm.
So
you either have to try and waggle with the Wii remote or have a special button to hold down and move the camera.
Yeah, it's like not every game was Mario Galaxy where it actually took into account the fact that you'd have the Wiimote and the Nunchuck as your default. It's like remember, Mario Galaxy was literally designed around you having only one analog stick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, you think this is a minor thing, but you don't know how important that second analog stick for camera control is until you don't have it. Or you play a game that doesn't utilize it correctly. Now, that wants to use the second analog stick for, like movement or something. It's like, I think Yahtzee covered this one time in one of his reviews. It's like, having your second analog stick as your camera control may not be, interesting, but it's it's really important, and not everything that's important is flashy.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that aside, I didn't really have too much in the way of camera control. Anyway, so getting back to the paint points, this is important in another regard because how many paint points you have determines how big your blob is. And the more paint points you have, the bigger he is, and the bigger he is, he's slower and clunkier to control. That actually doesn't play as big a part as you think it might. But it does have an effect sometimes. Like, I had some trouble jumping at point when the blob was fairly large.
Mm.
And that's also where like jumping challenges come into play. It's not so much, precarious platformers as it is trying to reach higher areas, because the blob's jumping is pretty limited. And also some of the challenges play into that as well, because like some of the specific level challenges, you've got to paint certain areas certain colors, and motherfuck, they can get downright evil in later areas.
Mm.
It's a reason why I failed this one level, the dam level. It's because I had to paint these towers green, and they're all like over. You had to do a fair amount of platforming to get them, but they had a paint bot at one area that kept turning me yellow. They didn't have a blue robot, so I had to waste time. And it's like, yeah, that wasn't fun. And then the final challenge proved to be a difficulty spike I wasn't expecting, and that's kind of flowing into the big problem with this game. So this game, your initial playthrough of a level will be timed. There's also a thing called free paint where you don't have to worry about the timer. But when you're playing the level first time out, you have ostensibly say 10, 15 minutes to complete it. It depends on what you're doing in the level and how long it is. Like that seems to be a fair amount of time, sure, but I'm like, you do get time pickups. You do you do get time from either smashing enemies or completing painting blocks or completing challenges. So, and what I'm getting at is, if you're going for a completionist run, especially like on the timed levels, I'm not sure if you can do that in free paint, but the point is, if you're going, especially if you're going for 100% completion, that's going to take some time, and that's where I ran into the problem in this game, because going for, like trying to get 100% on the level can take 30 minutes at least. Like one took 90 minutes. Yep. I'm like, that's a lot of time to invest in a level. Now, because it's not.
Yeah, that is not what I expected from what I had seen of this game.
No, it's like, remember,
which admittedly was not much, but still.
No, like keep in mind the surface challenge is just to get through the level, and you have like if you can do it in like under 10 minutes. It's when you're trying to do everything, that's when it fucking becomes a shocking time sink. And the problem is your progress isn't saved. So if you have the desire to get 100% on a level, you only get 92%. You got to do it all again. At least that's what I saw. Like, I'll admit I didn't really try, because just the thought of doing a level again and putting in another hour, because the reason that or it's going to take you time to actually track down the one thing you didn't paint. Yeah, that
any kind of completionist thing that can be a huge like where the point is completion, that can be a huge pain. Is when you've done 90% of a thing, the last 10% is a lot harder to find.
And like I said, I didn't try the free paint mode. Maybe I should have, but I'll be honest. Like I said, I was so exhausted from playing that level, I didn't want to go back. Now it's like. It's all like I said, when you spend that much time and the thought of having to do it over again, or spend even more time on it, I just like moving on. That's why I like the sub challenges, because they kept it to fairly short times, like a minute, 2 minutes, something like that. It's not a deal breaker, because we're talking about at the end of the day optional stuff, and the core game moves at a brisk enough pace where if you're not going for a completionist thing, it's not going to affect you. But yeah, that and that's unfortunate, because that's what got me to quit the game entirely. Now, I just didn't have the desire to, after putting an hour and a half level and some bullshit at the end prevented me from completing it, I'm just like, I'm done.
Now, is it like completing it to progress, or is that just for your own satisfaction?
A bit of both. You do have to paint a certain amount. You have to get a certain amount of paint score to advance to open the gates. Although sometimes opening the gates requires you to complete an objective, like rescuing prisoners or something like that. Like, uh, but like I said, the core mechanics are really well done. And if you recall our Voodoo Vince review, like this is one of the things I lamented is about the platformer genre in general is it got too kind of caught up in the conventions of late 90s platformers. And this is a game that for the better didn't conform to those tropes. I suppose it helps that it's a Wii game from 2008 and not a game from, say, the PlayStation 1 or Xbox or anything like that. It also shows that, not surprisingly, platformers weren't completely dead, especially on something like the Wii. But it is a really, really unique and enjoyable platformer. Another thing to mention is the music. Like, let's see. The music has a real, how do I put this, Caribbean vibe. Not surprising because it's going for a really anti-establishment aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And the music's actually kind of tied to the paint. Like,
So, like, what does it change when you change your color?
yes. Like, the kind of color, the amount of color you have, the size of the amount of paint points actually plays into how much of the song is playing at any given time. It's subtle, but it's really dynamic stuff.
Mm.
Uh, you know, graphics. Um, well, the game isn't going to win any awards for visual fidelity, because after all, this was a 2008 Wii game.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it's not hideously dated like say Voodoo Vince was. I mean, Voodoo Vince had its textures and everything updated, but it wasn't getting around the fact that it looked like an Xbox original game. And like, and that being said, I'm like, the game has, like, I'd say modern sized levels. It's like even though you only have, like, it may not take you an hour to complete a level, even if you're just going through it, it's still a lot longer than a lot larger than your PlayStation 2 era levels. And it kind of speaks to the power that the Wii actually had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not talking open world expanses here, but for a platforming game, this was pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another note about the conversion is that they didn't add any Steam achievements or Steam cards.
Interesting. They usually do that.
Yeah, I found that kind of odd. That being said, there are internal achievements, not just for the amount of stuff you paint, but like the amount of what they call gradients. Like when you complete a block, a whole bunch of creatures called gradients come out, and if you paint them all, you will get some time. And yes, you are encouraged to do that so you don't run out of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps track of that. It keeps track of how many trees you painted. If you every level has a blimp that can be quite tricky to paint because it's flying up in the air. You gotta find its specific location and paint it. See, this is what I'm talking about. 100% completion. Like, I didn't know there was a blimp until like the second level, and I missed it. It's like,
Can you then go back and do the first level again?
oh yeah, you can go back into levels.
Oh yeah, but it's like long,
You know,
so you wouldn't want
yeah,
to.
it's like it's not necessarily that. It's like you can go back into the levels, but the stuff that you painted doesn't stay painted because that's how level completion works.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum.
So this is one of those it could have done well with like a free mode after you
Well,
beat it.
it does have a free mode. That's
Well, I
free
mean,
paint.
like after you've completed stuff, it keeps your completion. You can go back and find stuff you missed.
I'm willing to bet that happens in free paint.
Mm.
Like if you paint in there, it'll keep it open. I'm like, granted, I can't confirm that because, like I said, you know, there's just so much of the burnout, um, because painting stuff also can get tedious at times. Like, anyway, let's see. Enemies. Yeah, if there's a I'd say another downside of the game, like you're not gonna really meet a lot of problems in terms of enemies. They exist, but they're not that difficult of an obstacle. Even when you get into more difficult enemy types, um, and you'd think they'd be dangerous because like what they can do is they can infect you, um, which not only slow like it's basically like a poison status effect where not only are you slowly dying, but if you touch something that you painted before, it becomes unpainted. But
Mm.
I'll be honest, outside of a few instances, I didn't really have a problem with this mechanic. Like the enemies, even like when I was fighting tanks, were just not a big problem. Like, take that as you will. Let's see. Uh, so I'm trying to think. Oh right. Internal achievements. Um, you do get things to unlock, like soundtracks, styles as they're called. Uh, it's like, especially in a level, like you start out by painting in solid objects, but as you get more and more styles, there'll be much fancier painting things. I'm not exactly sure what to call it. Wow. And let's see. So the price of the Blob is currently $20. Let's see. Do I think that's a fair price? Yeah. Considering, it's like considering this is a fully featured retail 3D platformer. I mean, yeah, it's from 2008, but it's still got a lot of content.
It sounds like it's aged fairly well.
Yes, it's definitely aged. Yeah. See, its visual design.
It makes sense. This game has the kind of visual design where being comparatively low fidelity doesn't make it really look bad.
Yeah, that was another problem. If I'm being honest, that was another problem with Voodoo Vince, is going for a more realistic, quote unquote, aesthetic. Even though it was a hyper exaggerated New Orleans, um, dated like aged those graphics a lot more than they should have been. It's like realistic looking graphics, like I guess, and it's also, this game is very bright. Like, I find bright, cheery games age a lot better than the games of browns and grays.
Mm-hmm.
You know, eh, that's just kind of how it goes. You know, and I also like the fact that the Blob here is, even though it's a game that's verging on 10 years old, yeah, still plays fairly uniquely in this day and age. And honestly, this is the kind of platformer we need to see more of, rather than the ukuleles of the world. Yeah, nothing against.
I'm not going to say ukulele is bad or wasn't doing exactly what it intended to do, but yeah, collectathon things could use some innovation.
Yeah, it's like I have nothing against ukulele specifically. I haven't played the game, but I'm like, it was specifically pitched as a throwback, and a throwback it was. But I do think one of the reasons why the genre not quite died out, but collapsed like it did, was because it got too up its own ass when it came to collecting games.
Oh yeah, very specifically, some of the later ones just had way too damn much collecting, or made the collecting awkward, like Donkey Kong 64, where I mean, Donkey Kong 64, if you had free character swapping, or if there were like 6 to 10 character swap barrels in various locations throughout the level instead of just like one, would have gone over a lot better.
Certainly. And the Blob here, I'm like, kind of shakes the whole foundation of platforming design, not just in terms of its actual platforming and its challenges, but I guess it's more a substitution than a actual break in the mold. But you're not collecting things that there are icons to collect, but they're all optional stuff. Like the styles, you collect them in level, but you don't need to do that. I mean, there's still a sense of progression, but the focus isn't on collect the stars. It's paint the objects, and that's integrated into about every facet of the design. Now, it's pretty genius stuff, which is especially impressive considering this came from THQ, a publisher and such that really wasn't known for putting out bold and experimental platforming games, or bold or experimental anything, especially around the year of 2008. This was still like the waning days of them being the king of licensed shit.
Emphasis not on licensed.
Emphasis on both. Like, seriously, they put out a lot of shitty licensed titles.
Not just, I should have said.
Yeah. Or if they weren't shitty, they were about the blandest thing you could play. I mean, that was kind of like, and this is also a really good kids game. Like, it's like I said, this is definitely something I'd recommend for families, and if you have children, because it's not that complicated a game, and it's got that whole very bright, simple, solid color structure that will appeal to kids. Now, I'm like, granted, it will come at the expense of older players who will see something like this and not give it 2 wonks worth of time.
Which doesn't mean it isn't worth that. It just doesn't have as much of an appeal sometimes.
Yeah, I'm like, but I don't think that, like I said, I really do think the THQ was going for kids specifically because, like I said, not just the design aesthetic, but the Wii. Yeah, I know the Wii targeted everyone, but It was also a pretty big kid system back in the day. Um, and apparently, yeah, like it looks like it was a pretty big hit on the Wii at least. Sold about 700,000 copies.
Hmm.
Like what, which sounds pretty successful since I don't think this game probably didn't cost that much to make, especially in comparison to a probably like the Blob 2, which was released for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 as well.
Hmm.
Now it's like, and like uh and like I said, as far as the conversion goes, uh pretty solid. Maybe not exceptional. I'm trying to. I'm not exactly sure what the graphical uh, settings and all that stuff are, but it ran smoothly, no hitches, no anything like that. Like, it didn't seem to suffer from like poor optimization or poor, just like poor porting or anything like that. Uh, it's like once again, I'm not sure how difficult it was to convert this game to the modern PC platformer, the modern PC platform.
If there are any problems, it doesn't show much.
Yes, I mean it. It's like I would have to talk to the developer. Yes, I have sent out an invite. They are interested in coming on the show, but they said more in the late summer fall area because they're kind of busy right now. It's E3 season, so I get a lot of that right now. Anyway, so to wrap up, the Blob is a really wonderful platformer. Just be wary about how much time you want to invest in it, and you should be fine. I guess in terms of a score, say an 8 out of 10. You know, I'd ask if my colleagues had any more to say about this, but unfortunately, we only got the one code.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've never, like I said, I haven't played it, unfortunately.
yeah, it's like as far as how it goes, picking this up on the PC versus the Wii. Um, that's hard to say because if you have a Wii or a Wii U, you could potentially get this game cheaper. I'm pretty sure I've seen on Amazon used versions of the Wii game going for like $4 to $6. But keep in mind that's tracking down a physical copy of the game.
Right.
It's like it shouldn't be too hard, given that this game was fairly popular back in its day, and I don't think demand is especially high in terms of collectability.
GameStop right now has
Uh,
it for $3.
but if you don't have that system, or if you don't want to be inconvenienced by tracking down a physical copy, then yeah, the PC version will do you good.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Uh,
Adam, real quick, it's $3 at GameStop at time of recording.
yeah. Well, like I said, there you go. You can get it much, but like I said,
If you can find it, a physical copy there.
Mhm.
well, yeah, it's like um, you may not always be able to find a copy of that, and it's also more. This was only released for the Nintendo Wii, so if you don't have Wii or Wii U, you can't play this. And I guess another thing that's confusing me right now is why this was released exclusively for the PC, since um, THQ Nordic's remasters usually target multiple platforms. You know,
I
like
know maybe they could only get the agreement to do it on the PC so that it wouldn't like somehow compete with other consoles. from
I
two
think
generations ago.
I think it's more a matter of resources.
Hmm.
Um, given that the Blob, like I said, even though it's a Wii game, it's it's got a fair bit more going on than say Sign Moria.
Well, and they
You know,
also might be using the PC version to test the waters. They would as well on PC and might get a Xbox One and PS4 release.
I was more going about resources.
Mm.
Like Builtworks, the developer of the game, may have not had the resources, or I shouldn't say the developer, the porter of the game. Um, it may not have had the resources to bring this game to the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One or even the Nintendo Switch alongside the Nintendo or alongside the PC version.
Mm.
So we could still see like a PlayStation 4, Xbox One version of the Blob come out, say in the fall.
Possibly.
It's like THQ hasn't announced anything about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
Yeah, this is all speculation on our part. We don't have any concrete thing from the developer.
Yeah, I'm like, not yet. Once again, I've been trying to get them back on the program, but it's been painful because there's always another convention for them to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But if there's one thing we're good at, it's speculating.
Yeah. That being said, yeah, I'm also kind of frustrated that the Blob just kind of got plopped down for release here.
Yeah, if we hadn't been like scheduled to review it, I literally wouldn't know it had been released.
Yeah. This is like I put it on my like I belong to a couple of like Game Press sites, and I put it on my watch list there, and I got an email informing, oh hey, this is coming out soon. I'm like, what already? Well, geez, that's it. It's like I said, and you know, I if this game didn't do well, I'm not going to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which is kind of unfortunate because it sounds like a pretty good adaptation of a pretty good game.
Yes, I'm willing to wager that it's probably better here on the PC, not just because of say resolution options and frame rate, but also because you don't have to put up with the Wiimote nunchuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, I like the Wiimote nunchuck, but I concede that a second analog stick would be nice.
Yes. So I think that'll about do it for the Blob here. Be sure to tune in about a half an hour from now when we go into our review of Chroma Squad. And until then, good gaming, I guess.